Yes, it's John G. Sutton. Tales from the Jails. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about some horribly obnoxious characters that I met when I was working in the prison service. I'll talk first of all about, I've mentioned this guy before, the Cambridge rapist Peter Cook. He was convicted in 1975, I believe. He'd been conducting a series of rapes and burglaries, in fact, around the town of Cambridge. And what had happened was they called him, actually, one of his names was the Beast of Bedsitland, because what he was doing was preying on these young female students. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the Cambridge rapist, I'd highly recommend that you look him up. He used to wear a head mask, a leather head mask with eye slits and a zipped mouth. And the actual man himself was in his mid-40s when he was committing these offences. He's obviously been committing offences many times before as a younger man, but he was in his mid-40s. He was born in 1928, actually. So by the time he was arrested in 1975, he'd be, what, 47, yeah? So he was not a young man, yeah? Not a young man anyway. But when I met him at the Scrubs, he was an obnoxious, horrible little bastard, about 5'4", but extremely muscular and strong. And he had an indication that he wanted to be a woman. I've previously mentioned how he attempted to kiss me, and I introduced him to the door frame of his cell. It's easy the right way you do it. Just one arm on the left shoulder, one arm on the head, and switch them round like that, and they just crack with the door, and you just push them in the cell and they fall on the floor. That's the way it works. And of course they've definitely tripped. Didn't mean to do it, Your Honour. You got to do what you've got to do, yeah. Anyway, Peter Cook, yeah, he was a horrible, obnoxious bastard, and he raped, I think he was convicted of 6 rapes or 4 rapes. Anyway, but he had numerous rapes to but the people that came forward, and he was sentenced to life ×2, and he died in prison. He died at Oxford Prison, I believe. When I knew him, he was at the Scrubs, and he was on C Wing waiting allocation. Yeah, because they put the people in there, didn't matter how long they were serving, unless they were terrorists, so extremely risk. And he wasn't. He was a Cat A, but he wasn't an extreme risk, but he was considered to be Category A, which meant that everywhere he went he had a book, and you had to sign it. When he went off the landing, you signed him off the landing. Next day, so you kept a record of where he was. And he had a dark jacket on with yellow stripes down the front and yellow stripes down the legs to indicate that this was an escape risk prisoner. But Peter Cook couldn't escape from a plastic bag, seriously. He was a pathetic little individual. He was strong, he was muscular, and he was definitely a pervert. Yeah, I mean, to want to actually kiss me, I mean, I'm not exactly the prettiest boy on the block, so he had to be very strange. Yeah, so that was my encounter with Peter Cook. Saw him for about 2 or 3 weeks while he was on the landings. He generally made a bloody nuisance of himself by pretending to be a woman, jumping out with his erect penis, dressed up in a stupid. He got one of the sheets off the bed and painted it, and dressed up as a woman. Obviously, attempting to get younger inmates, and I think I was the only member of staff that he attempted to kiss, but it wasn't a compliment. Yeah, the other one of the, I mean, I met many of them. I'm just talking today about 2 of them that I met. The other one, particularly one of the notorious horrible bastards I met, was the Black Panther, Donald Nielsen. Yeah, he's the guy that let the young lady, the young girl, Leslie Whittle, tied a metal loop around her neck and hung her up from, I think it was a drainage shaft in the road or in a field or something, and put her in there and attempted to extort money from her family. Of course, when they finally found her, of course, Leslie Whittle had slipped off the ledge that she was supposed to be standing on and had been dead for quite a considerable time. And Donald Nielsen got a whole life tariff. He appealed against that and it was dismissed, I believe in 2005, in which it was held that his crimes were so horrendous that he should never be allowed free. Absolutely right. I mean, my experience of Donald Nielsen is that he was determined to make himself into a notorious villain. You know, he wanted to be notorious. You know, who's this? The Black Panther. The reason they called him the Black Panther was that somebody described his movements when they saw him breaking into a property as being quick and resembling the movements of a panther, and the press picked up on this and named him the Black Panther, rather like the press picked up on the stories about the murders in Whitechapel, and they called them the Jack the Ripper murders. Yeah. And somebody started writing letters to the Commissioner of Police. From hell, Jack the Ripper. I'm Jack. Yeah. It was just made up, really, and I'm sure that the real perpetrator of these crimes did not sign himself as Jack the Ripper or write that he was in hell. So, yeah, anyway, my encounter with Donald Nielsen included seeing him on numerous occasions on the secure unit at D1 in Strange Ways, where he'd be bouncing around from morning till midnight, yeah, jumping up and down, press-ups, sit-ups, step-ups, bouncing himself off the wall. Thought he was going to be super fit. He wasn't really, didn't make any difference. He died in jail. And listen, they have a strange thing in common. I know it may not have any significance, but Donald Nielsen, known as the Black Panther, and Peter Coote, known as the Cambridge Rapist, both died in prison, and both at the age of 75. May they rot in hell. Anyway, that's today's Tales from the Jails. I don't know if you've been seeing on television, there's radio and all that. They've been in the press. They've been talking about the terrible conditions in British prisons and how it's an offence to human society. They don't need to put people in prison like that. What is the possible use of imprisoning somebody for non-payment of council rates? The rates. How can they imprison them? If they had the money, they'd pay it. I mean, the cost of living these days. Listen, when I started drinking at the age of 15, underage drinking, as you do, yeah, beer cost 1 shilling and 11 pence a pint. So as there was 20 shillings in £1, then we're going back pre-decimal, yeah, you could buy 10.5 pints of beer, yeah, for £1. Today, you go in London, yeah, and go and get a pint of Guinness in London, you'll be paying the best part of a tenner, £8 or something like that for a pint, yeah. So when I started drinking, you could get 80 pints for that price, yeah. And today you can only get one. Imagine that. That's the way it's gone. I mean, it's great thing. The cost of living's gone mad. Petrol at bloody, what is it, £7, £8 a gallon. Luckily, I don't have to go very far these days. But listen, anyway, I'll show you this. I've mentioned this before. There's no need to imprison people for stuff like that. It's not going to rehabilitate them. It's not going to do anything. And the reason that people are put in prison is not to do with teaching them not to offend. It's to do with teaching you not to offend. You see, the idea is that if you think, you know, oh, well, if I don't pay my TV license, if I don't pay my rates, don't pay my tax, don't follow the rules and instructions, don't do this, don't do that, got to follow the rules. Yeah, if I don't, they're going to send me to prison. You can't send everybody to prison. But that's the reason that there are prisons. There are not prisons there to rehabilitate people. Look me in the eyes. Say after me, I am not a number. I am a free man. Well, if you're a free man, tell them where to stick it. And don't support people who talk about long-term imprisonment, because it does not work. I'm going to read you one of these poems now, but before I do, it's not singing because that's a song dinger, but I'm going to read you a poem because the poems are proving popular. If you don't like them or you prefer singing, let me know below with the comments. And do please like and subscribe and all the rest of it. But here we go, I'm going to read you a poem now. It's by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Yeah, it's called Ozymandias, and this poem is about the meaningless of property, the meaningless of show and pomp and circumstance. How in the eye of time, this is all absolutely meaningless. This is Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. I met a traveller from an antique land who said, two vast and trunkless legs of stone in the desert stand. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions red, which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them, and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal these words appear, my name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my work, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. Ozymandias by Percy Bysshe Shelley. I sincerely hope you've enjoyed today's Tales from the Jails. My name is John G. Sutton. Not many people know that.